So, King's back with Chizmar, and we're back with Gwendy. In space? You bet. Here are 19 reasons to read Gwendy's final task. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is a place where I'm taking you through the works of Stephen King in chronological order and giving you 19 reasons to read all of his books. If that sounds like something you'd like more of, click around, see what else you can find. There's also a bunch of specials here as well, including my Stephen King starter kit. And if you like it, why not subscribe? And while we're talking subscribing, you can also sign up for my newsletter. There's a link up there, there's a link down there. The newsletter itself is me recommending indie horror authors for you to go and check out and read, and throwing a few short stories of mine your way. And as a bonus for signing up, you get an ebook of my mini collection, Mirrored and 10 Tiny Tales of Terror, for free, just for giving me your email address and signing up to my newsletter. I mean, don't tell the boss, which is me, but if you want to just sign up to get the free book and then unsubscribe to the newsletter, I'll be heartbroken, but I won't mind too much. Just hit the link, see what you think. So we've made it to this year in our chronological journey, or at least this year as I stand here recording this. Yeah, we're in 2022, and the first of 2 books released by King in that year, Gwendy's Final Task, which I dropped a spoiler-free review of back in the start of the year when this came out, which you can go and check out whenever you like. In this video, I'm going to give you 19 reasons to read this one, and I'm going to cluster any spoilers together at the end and give you fair warning before they arrive so you can bail if you need to bail. But if that sounds good, let's get on with it. Here are 19 reasons to read Gwendy's Final Task. So as you probably know, this book is the continuation and the conclusion of a story first started by Stephen King and Richard Chizmar back in 2017 when they released the novella Gwendy's Button Box. Now, Richard Chizmar went on to do Gwendy's Magic Feather in 2019, but for this one, King is back, and they've got a bit more room to tell the story they really want to. And I'm being honest, having the 2 of them back together, King and Chizmar, it's like peanut butter and chocolate. Fucking delicious. But seriously, this one has all the good elements from Button Box. A great cast of characters, a really tight, engaging story that keeps you flipping through the pages. But this is almost twice as long as Button Box, so there's a bit more room to explore things and just to allow the 2 authors to enjoy themselves because they clearly have fun writing with each other. Now let's take another look at the cover. See that? That's the tower, right? See you in the spoilers section. Now I said in my Button Box video that I was kind of surprised that that initial story has had enough life in it to spawn 2 sequels, and I stand by that, but I'm not complaining because I really did enjoy reading Final Task. I don't think it's a great starting point for a King newbie. I mean, it's the 3rd of a trilogy and it's pulling so many references that it would be a weird starting point. But for constant readers out there, I think there's plenty to enjoy without it feeling cheesy and gimmicky. It's not simply a book packed full of Easter eggs, although there are quite a few to enjoy. So what's the hook of this? Well, it's Gwendy in space. But to expand on that a bit more, our favourite Senator Gwendy Peterson is part of the Eagle 19 Heavy crew, which is going up into space, and she's supposedly there to go and do some shit to do with the weather, when actually she's managed to blag her way on board this rocket so she can go up into space and, well, yeet the Button Box right out into outer space so nobody else can fuck with it. Did I just use yeet correctly? Apologies if I didn't. She's also battling the fact that she's suffering from early stages of Alzheimer's disease, and she's having to keep that hidden from her crewmates, just to throw in a little bit of jeopardy in there alongside this story. Oh, and there's also a Donald Trump-like fat racist called Gavin Winston who is on the crew with them. Wait, can I say? You get the idea. He is a twat. Oh, and Gwendy's husband was killed in a hit-and-run accident in everyone's favourite town, Derry, Maine, and somebody sets fire to part of her house while she's up in space. She's got something that somebody really wants. So something I'd forgotten about until I was digging back into this book was just how likeable Gwendy is as a character. And it sounds like a pretty flimsy reason to read the book, but I think it's valid. King and Chizmar managed to make Gwendy seem very exceptional, very talented, very special, but also very grounded and down to earth and normal. And she's just someone you enjoy being in the company of when she's on the page. And I think that's what gives these stories the momentum to just pull you through them. Our lead is someone you can identify with and you can admire, and she's just really good. So there's not much more I can say on this point in particular without going into spoiler territory, but basically Gwendy has the button box again, and through the flashbacks that we get as she's going through her journey into space, we learn a bit about what the other guardians of the box did in between Gwendy's previous stints. And let's just say Gwendy was definitely the best keeper of the box. So lastly, before I go into spoilers, a quick point about how accessible this book is for constant readers. Now, as I mentioned, it's not a great starting point, but if you've not read the first two Gwendy's books, you don't really need to read them to get a good experience out of Final Task. You'll get a better experience out of Final Task for reading them first, for sure, but they're kind of summarized enough within Final Task that you don't have to read them first if you don't want to. This is a really good standalone story within King's wider works. But as I said earlier, it does help if you are a constant reader, because some of the zingers that start coming out here will really just, well, they'll just make you smile more if you know what they're going on about. Okay, we're entering spoiler territory, so if you need to dip out here, then please do so. Otherwise, buckle up, because we've got a few more reasons for you to read Gwendy's Final Task coming right up. Okay then, The Tower. This is a fantastic foray back into the world of the Dark Tower series. Now, I was hesitant about this. When I first saw the cover with the tower on and I read descriptions that it was going to have links to all of that tower stuff, yeah, I did roll my eyes, but credit to King and to Chizmar as well. They really do pull it off in a very satisfying way that isn't cheesy, isn't forced, and is a lot of fun. There's so much good stuff going on here that just allows you to dip your toe back into the Dark Tower world. We've got the ongoing battle between Tet and Sombra. We've got the perilous fates of our world and all other worlds than these, and even a nod to the Crimson King. Not only that, we get a return of the Low Men, a species of bad people who scare me more and more each time I think about them and read about them. And they've not got any softer in the time since we last saw them either. They're responsible for the death of Gwendy's husband, and they are a threat. Also, as I mentioned earlier, we get to go back to the living fucking hellhole that is Derry, Maine, and you will still love hating being there. There's even a reference of Pennywise still knocking around, which should realistically sound horrendously cliched and cheesy, but actually you'll just be thinking, yep, if there's anywhere in the world where that clown is still going to be floating around the sewers, it's Derry, Maine. So as I mentioned earlier, we learn more about the other custodians of the box who had it in between Gwendy's stints, and this brings with it probably the only part of this book I didn't like. The part that tells us that COVID was caused by one of the previous box guardians. Nah, didn't need that. We also, through these flashbacks, learn an interesting development about Richard Farris, who we pretty much are accepting is Randall Flagg. He's old, he's sick, he might well be dying. Is that the end for Flagg? Or is he going to pull a different sort of transition like he did at the end of The Stand? Who knows? One of the high points in this story for me is the increasingly tense relationship between Gwendy and that fat wanker Gareth. When it really comes to a head, and we're in spoiler section here, so when Gwendy kills him, it is very satisfying. And then after that, we get a somewhat unexpected and poignant and beautiful end to Gwendy's story. When she's faced with the prospect of just her Alzheimer's getting worse and worse, she decides that she's not just going to chuck the box into space, she's going to strap it to herself with a rocket and blow herself into space and take the two of them out there to just float around and die. You know, for a story that started with such a cute little novella a few years previously, you'll be surprised at how much the ending of this will hit you. So there are lots of Easter eggs to look out for in this one, too many to list to be honest, but a few that I particularly enjoyed. There was a mention of a cane with a silver wolf's head on top, which is a nod to Storm of the Century. All of the Derry stuff was great, and there was a weird retelling of a story from Gareth's past where he broke into a neighbour's house and smashed some plates and got weirdly aroused by it all, which is an echo of a similar story from Dreamcatcher from Owen, if memory serves me correctly, off the top of my head. And lastly, this one's worth reading because it's a great story written by two people who work very well together and clearly enjoy working together, and is a really genuine and fun trip back to the Dark Tower world. If you're an existing Stephen King fan, I can't see anything in here that you wouldn't like about it. So there we go, 19 reasons to read Gwendy's Final Task. Let me know what you thought of this one, and don't forget to check out my lengthier review of this from earlier in the year. I'll drop it in the description below. And also in the description below is the link where you can sign up to my newsletter and get your free copy of my mini collection, Mirrored plus 10 Tiny Tales of Terror, as an ebook. You get it just for signing up for the newsletter, and in the newsletter itself you'll get some short stories from me for free, and you'll get recommendations of great indie horror authors for you to go and check out, and maybe add some new names to your shelf and your collection. And if you want to come and say hi on Instagram, I'm at Dave Musson, always happy to chat King, new horror authors, or the increasingly disappointing existence that is Aston Villa Football Club. Come say hi. Up next, the final book, at least for now, that needs the 19 Reasons treatment.